Remember, the truth will come to light sooner or later. One by one, the masks of those who have been working against you and behind your back are being unmasked, and your path is getting brighter and brighter. The game is over. The secrets are unraveling. Write 444 in the comments now because you have been chosen, and no one can escape your light and destiny. Now is the time for confrontation. Truth is on the side of the winner. Imagine a lighthouse on a foggy coastline, its beam sweeping over the waves, seen only by those meant to find safe passage. That's what your spiritual journey has become. A light for the worthy, a hidden path for those whose hearts are ready to seek truth. You didn't slip away out of fear or defeat. You were lifted, relocated by hands far greater than your own, set apart for a purpose that no human can comprehend or erase. The world might see absence, but heaven sees strategy. There's nothing accidental about your hiddenness. Just as God hid Moses in the cleft of the rock, shielding him from danger until the appointed hour, your season of being unseen was divine appointment, not abandonment. Those who once shared your table now find themselves searching for a seat that no longer exists in your presence. Like gold sifted from sand, your value became clear, only when you were no longer easy to reach. People who overlooked you now comb through old photographs, rereading messages, hoping to reconstruct the path that led to your absence. Their minds are restless at midnight, replaying memories, questioning what they missed. They look for clues in every shadow, but you've been hidden beneath a cloud of divine protection, and no amount of searching can uncover what God has covered. You are the prodigal's mystery, gone, but not lost. Your journey became a sacred pilgrimage, one that few are willing to take because it requires the kind of faith that walks by spirit, not by sight. Heaven drew a veil between you and the crowd, separating wheat from chaff, real from counterfeit, truth from imitation. The same hands that shielded Daniel in the lion's den closed the door behind you and said, "Rest here a while, chosen one, while I make your enemies your footstool." Some still try to follow your footsteps, as if your destiny could be mapped like streets on a city grid. But there are no GPS coordinates for the favor God has placed on your life. Your journey is like manna, appearing only for those who are hungry enough to gather, and vanishing before the greedy can hoard it. Your steps are guided by a shepherd who leads through unseen valleys and up mountains shrouded in morning mist. They see the results, but not the route. They feel the impact of your presence, but can't trace the wind that carried you away. It's like watching ripples on a pond and not knowing where the stone was dropped. While the world scrolls through social media feeds, searching for signs of you, liking, commenting, and even screenshotting your old victories, they're missing the miracle. You didn't just disappear. You were promoted to a new spiritual rank. You didn't run from battles. You were reassigned to greater territory. Some folks can't see you anymore because they're still standing on ground you've already outgrown. God moved you to a level that can't be reached by public opinion, gossip, or even well-meaning friends who aren't ready for the next chapter. Heaven put a do not disturb sign on your soul so you could rest, rebuild, and re-emerge at the right time with new strength and a fresh anointing. People talk about you in hushed tones. Their conversations have turned into secret prayer meetings, though they wouldn't call it that. They wonder where you went, why you withdrew, what you're up to. The truth is, you became God's best-kept secret, hidden away like a seed in the soil. Above ground, it looks like nothing's happening, but beneath the surface, roots are growing deep, setting the stage for a harvest that will shock every doubter. Your season of invisibility is actually incubation for your destiny. What looked like absence was the presence of God working behind the scenes, orchestrating miracles in silence. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. They search for you because your absence leaves a gap they can't fill. Their lives, once illuminated by your wisdom, now feel dimmer, colder, and more uncertain. They chase rumors, follow digital trails, hoping to stumble into your orbit once again. But heaven has placed a firewall around your spirit. Like the Ark of the Covenant, only those with pure motives and prepared hearts are permitted to draw near. Your absence is a sermon. Your silence is a testimony. People are learning that favor is not for sale and access is not guaranteed. They're discovering that the chosen are not always visible, but always essential. God hid you in plain sight. You became like oil in the alabaster jar, sealed, precious, awaiting the appointed time to be poured out. While others exhausted themselves looking for you in the familiar, God sent you on an unfamiliar path, through valleys of testing, into green pastures of peace, and toward mountaintops of revelation. The absence they mourn is the evidence of your elevation. They cannot see you because they do not recognize what it means to be set apart, sanctified, and sealed for something holy. And now, your hiddenness speaks louder than any post, any story, any status update ever could. You're not just missing, you're missed. Not just absent, you're appointed. Your life became a parable of what happens when God Himself does the hiding. No enemy can find you. No betrayer can reach you. No manipulator can attach themselves to your journey. You became heaven's protected investment, a testimony in progress, a miracle unfolding in slow motion. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. There are those who still linger at the edges of your old life, hoping for a glimpse, praying for a word, desperate for the comfort you used to bring. They gather fragments and try to make sense of the puzzle, not knowing that God has scattered the pieces, so only those with pure hearts and divine vision can see the picture He's painting with your life. You became the story they whisper about, the prayer request they never make aloud, the example they reference when speaking of hope that doesn't fade. Your legacy is being built in your absence. The conversations you started continue to ripple. The seeds you planted blossom in unexpected gardens. And the prayers you prayed are still opening doors you haven't even walked through yet. You are proof that sometimes the greatest work happens off stage, when the audience isn't watching and the spotlight has gone dim. God is writing new chapters for you in invisible ink, and only those aligned with your spirit will be able to read them when the time comes. So let them search, let them wonder, let them marvel at your disappearance. It's all part of the plan. You have not been lost, you've been preserved. You have not been overlooked, you've been reserved for a greater purpose. When the time is right, heaven will unveil what's been growing in the dark. Miracles, breakthroughs, a harvest of blessing that no one can claim but you. You're not running from your calling. You're running to it, protected by a grace that no one can explain and a favor that cannot be replicated. That's what it means to be chosen, to walk unseen through the valley and yet leave a trail of hope for those willing to follow in faith. You are not forgotten. You are simply being prepared for a season that demands your full strength, your purest heart, and your highest wisdom. Trust the hiding, honor the process, and know that when you reappear, it will be on heaven's terms, with heaven's power, and in heaven's perfect timing. They may search for you, but only those who are ready for the new you will be allowed to find you. Picture a mighty eagle, once caged beneath a painted sky, its wings clipped not by storms, but by the gentle hands of those who claimed to love it. That eagle, though admired for its feathers and its song, was never meant for the perch. It was born for the horizon. This is the path of the chosen. Your disappearing act was never a retreat, but the flight of an eagle breaking free from the hands that wanted you grounded. Sometimes it's not the chains that bind us, but the velvet ropes, the soft-spoken cautions, and the warm handshakes that hold us down. Your rising became the miracle they never wanted to witness, for it forced them to confront the cages in their own hearts. When you pulled away, you didn't slip out the back door out of fear or bitterness. You rose with the sunrise, quietly, with purpose. They watched your silhouette fade over the treetops and mistook your leaving for abandonment, never realizing it was the very call of God, lifting you to altitudes they'd never imagined. Their longing for your presence became the silent hymn of your transformation. Every sleepless night, every whispered question, "Where did you go?" became an anthem to your spiritual growth, proof that you were never meant to stay small. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the super thank you button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. Those webs they spun around your dreams weren't always made of malice. Sometimes, the greatest traps are the words wrapped in concern. Be careful, don't get your hopes up, stay humble. But for those marked by heaven, friendly fences become invisible walls, and the support offered is only safe as long as you don't outgrow the circle. Their advice, like polished stones, was meant to weigh down your pockets, to keep your feet on the ground, not your head in the clouds. They saw your light and, fearing their own shadows, built campfires beside you, not to warm you, but to siphon your flame. Each gathering was a disguised intervention. In living rooms and church halls, in group texts and family dinners, you were encouraged, but only if you promised not to climb higher than the roof they built for you. Every word of support was another rope, gently tied as if the only safe bird was the one with clipped wings. They masked their intentions as concern, their limits as wisdom. Yet deep down, you felt the Holy Spirit stirring, a restlessness, a voice saying, "This is not your ceiling, child. I've got more for you, but you'll have to break out alone." What they didn't know was that the season of hiding was your time in the wilderness. Like Moses fleeing into the desert, or David running from Saul, you discovered God's provision in lonely places. Disappearing didn't diminish your calling, it refined it. While they mourned your absence, heaven celebrated your metamorphosis. Those who tried to keep you comfortable were really keeping you small, while the Lord was preparing you to soar. Their longing became a witness, a living testimony to the fact that you could never be contained. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. God often removes you from the familiar to protect the treasure He placed inside you. If Joseph had stayed in his brother's camp, he'd have died in the pit. If Esther stayed silent in the palace, her people would have perished. Sometimes your absence is the shield that saves you from being spent on people who only see your potential as their resource. They wanted to borrow your vision, your hope, your prayers, your laughter. Yet God set a hedge of fire around your destiny, making you invisible to leeches, but visible to those who see with the eyes of faith. You became the blessing they never appreciated until you were gone. In your absence, the conversations changed, the rooms grew colder, and the gatherings, once vibrant, fell flat. They told themselves you'd return, that you'd find your way back into their fold. But deep down, they sensed your spirit had graduated. You were being promoted, not replaced. The longing in their eyes became the mirror in which they saw their own stagnation. As you soared, their own fences became more obvious. They realized the safety they built was nothing but a beautifully decorated cage. When God calls you out, He often calls you up. Like Abraham leaving his father's house, you had to trust the voice that said, "Go to a place I will show you." Disappearing meant finding yourself on mountaintops no one else wanted to climb. Up there, the air is thin and the crowd is small, but the view is worth every lonely mile. Those left behind talk about your change, your distance, but you know it was never about leaving them behind. It was about answering a summons that was never theirs to hear. Their restless longing is heaven's exclamation mark on your breakthrough. The same people who dismissed your dreams are now haunted by the space you once filled. Like the prophet Elijah carried by the whirlwind, your ascent left a residue of blessing, a double portion for those humble enough to seek it. Your growth is not just a private victory, it's a public sermon. Every time you choose higher ground, you give silent permission for others to pursue their own exodus from mediocrity. And as you rise, the Lord repurposes every snare, every friendly fence, every controlling hand into a runway for your next level. You don't look back, not out of arrogance, but because the future God wrote for you is brighter than any nostalgia the past can offer. Your journey is not a rejection of those who loved you, but a declaration that true love never cages, never clings, never competes. Real love releases. So let them remember you fondly, let their longing remain, for it's the evidence that you carried something holy, something heaven sent. You're the living proof that when God is for you, no fence, no scheme, no subtle sabotage can keep you from soaring. Your story is the story of the eagle, once admired, then confined, but always destined for the skies. Every time you break through another web, another limitation, you fulfill the promise God whispered before anyone tried to set your boundaries. You are meant to fly, and the sky is not your limit, it's your invitation. Imagine a wellspring bubbling up in the center of a desert, a miraculous spring, its waters pure and cool, unexpected and life-giving in a dry land. The moment that living water appears, all who thirst draw near. But instead of building a garden and rejoicing, some look for ways to cup that water in their own hands, to keep it for themselves. In rooms where laughter should have been a refuge, in places where trust should have wrapped around you like a warm quilt, your spirit became their secret resource, tapped in quiet moments, borrowed in crisis, drawn from as if you were a never-ending supply. You came to those spaces with a light in your eyes and hope in your step. Your heart showed up full of encouragement and open-handed love, ready to lift the weight off others' shoulders. People noticed. Even those who couldn't name what made you different felt the current of your kindness. But instead of honoring the gift, some set about siphoning off your joy. They tucked their insecurities behind forced smiles and watched for opportunities to draw from your well, never asking how you kept it full. They built private fortresses using bricks made of your inspiration, carving out little empires of self-worth by standing in your glow. Each time you poured yourself out, whether it was lending an ear in the kitchen or offering comfort in a hallway, they grew stronger while you grew weary. They called it friendship or teamwork, but it was really a quiet feeding on your spirit, a slow draining of the joy you so freely gave. Like folks gathering around a bonfire on a cold night. They loved your warmth, but never brought their own logs. In your presence, their spirits lifted, but their gratitude rarely reached beyond the surface. Those who sense the spark of God in you will sometimes try to capture it instead of celebrating it. They'd rather keep you close and controllable than watch you stretch your wings. It's as if you were a lantern hung in a dark barn, the only light for miles, so they kept coming back, but never asked what it cost to keep the fire burning. In moments when you reached for something bigger, when you spoke out a new dream, dared to plan a new adventure, or took a leap of faith, their masks slipped, their encouragement turned to warning, their smiles to subtle frowns. If you stumbled, they lined up with shallow sympathy, patting your back but secretly relieved to see you brought down to earth. But when you soared, when you claimed a victory, found unexpected favor, or grew beyond the limits of their understanding, that's when the atmosphere changed. You could see the shifting in their posture, the restlessness behind their congratulations. Like vines winding around a tree, their doubts and whispered worries sought to hold you in place, to keep you within reach. They wanted you blessed, but not too blessed. They hoped you'd shine, but only if they could stand in the circle of your light. The world will always find it easier to take from a well than to become one. Yet, the wellspring inside you is heaven-sent and cannot be owned or managed by human hands. Each time someone tried to draw from you without pouring back, it was just another opportunity for God to teach you about boundaries and worth. You learned the hard way that not every hand reaching out for help is offering friendship. Some are simply looking for a refill, hoping your overflow will make up for their own emptiness. Over time, you noticed the pattern. When you struggled, sympathy flowed, but it never went deep enough to fill your cup. When you rose, when you danced on the mountaintop with joy and accomplishment, their discomfort grew like a shadow at sunset. The ones who had cheered the loudest in your valley fell silent on your mountain. They would rather you be relatable than radiant. Your growth was a mirror, and what they saw made them uncomfortable because it showed them what was possible and what they had settled for. Now is the time to share God's blessings. By clicking the super thank you button on YouTube, you can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord guide your path. But here's the truth the Lord whispered in those quiet moments. You are not anyone's backup generator. Your spirit is not a community pool, free for the taking. God didn't make you a vessel just to be drained by the thirsty. He made you a river to be fed by heaven itself, overflowing from source, not scarcity. There is nothing selfish about stepping away from those who draw but never deposit, who cheer your struggles but choke on your triumphs. When you finally understood this, a new boldness came over you. You started protecting your heart, pouring out only where God led. You saw the difference between people who want to grow with you and those who want to grow because of you. The boundaries you set were not walls of pride, but gates of stewardship. The enemy tried to turn your compassion into a liability, but the Lord turned it into discernment. And the day you stopped apologizing for shining, oh, what a day that was. You realized you could love people without shrinking for them. You could lift them up without bending yourself in half. You could bless them without bankrupting your own soul. Your journey became less about making everyone comfortable and more about becoming fully who God made you to be. You saw how the ones who really mattered clapped the loudest when you succeeded and offered genuine comfort when you stumbled. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. If you're reading this and recognizing yourself, hear this loud and clear. You are not called to be a battery for the world's broken lamps. You are the light of the world, but it's not your job to keep every dark corner illuminated at your own expense. The same God who put a fountain in your soul is the one who will show you where to pour out and when to hold back. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is step out of the break room, walk away from the draining conversations, and find the place where your spark is seen as a blessing, not just a resource. Circles gathered around you, but not all hands were helping. Some wanted to keep tabs on your dreams, collecting pieces of your hope to use as fuel for their own schemes. Others made it their business to keep your confidence shaky, tossing sideways compliments or looking the other way when you needed a true friend. The truth is, their attitudes changed with the wind, quick to appear in your victories, yet absent when you needed a partner in the struggle. Their pattern was always clear: present when things were easy, nowhere when the storm came. Within the crowd, one figure lingered at the edge, drawn to your light, yet hungry to possess what made you shine. Their fascination with your spirit was tangled with envy, a push-pull between honoring you and seeking to own your gifts. Their affection was never steady, swinging between admiration and covert attacks, never sure whether to cheer you on or hold you back. For someone who'd never seen a true chosen one, your presence was both an answer to a prayer and a source of discomfort they didn't understand. This shadowed admirer played a dangerous game, sometimes echoing your laughter, other times sowing seeds of doubt. Their attention was never pure. It was an attempt to siphon your energy, wearing the mask of a supporter while secretly gnawing at the roots of your confidence. They couldn't simply receive your light. They wanted to control it. But the more you outgrew their narrative, the more their adoration soured into subtle sabotage, their help twisting into hindrance, their encouragement hiding a silent rivalry. You learned that the truest freedom is not hiding from life, but becoming unreachable to anything or anyone that seeks to limit your spirit. Like a mountain peak above the clouds, you remain visible only to those who climb high enough to meet you there. The old crowd may keep searching, but only those with hearts pure enough to handle your light are allowed into your new circle. The rest are left to remember what was and to ponder the mystery of your rise.